Today we have the honor of having here at Joey Jimenez, one of the. I think I've been following him since one of my friends told me about you, bro. I knew had seen you, but I didn't know it was you with the other bands that you had been with. So his
Órale.
name's Carmelo. He plays drums too. He told me about you. Hey, he's like, hey, check out this dude. He's fucking crazy. He plays fucking drums, like because he knows I play piano and I play drums.
Oh, okay.
Like, check him out, bro. Like, fuck, he knew that I like norteño and other styles too. And he's like, this dude is fucking crazy, bro. He could do some crazy shit. So then, shout out to him. I had to do it because he's the one that that's the guy from this band and from that band. I don't want to get there.
¿Cómo se llama? What's his name?
Carmelo.
Armelo. Armelo, shout out, carnal. Gracias. Thank you for the love.
Carmelo.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Carmelo is. He would always tell me.
Oh, Carmelo.
Yeah,
Carmelo. Okay,
Carmelo.
Carmelo. Sorry, I was saying Armelo. Carmelo. I'm sorry, man. Thank you, Mama.
Hey,
Salute.
salud.
Starbucks.
That's the way
Hey,
to do it.
it's because we just got a Starbucks here where I live in our town, Alice, Texas. Apenas agarramos al Starbucks, so taking advantage.
Hey, my fiance, shout out to her, Bianca and Nicole. We're about to get married in November, but she's
Órale.
addicted to freaking Starbucks. She's always she tells me I'm at work and she's like, "Hey, can you order me this and that?" I was like, "You know what? Here's my card. Just put it on file on your freaking profile," because she's always wanting to order stuff from there. But yeah, I mean that's good. I mean, I used to not like it, but then she got me into it.
Oh, dude, my family. Well, my wife and I were very into Starbucks, bro. But and then the thing is that Alice is such a small town. The next big town from us, the next big town closest to us is Corpus Christi, Texas. So when we go to Corpus, like to the mall or whatever, was like that Starbucks. So then all of a sudden we found out that they were putting a Starbucks in Alice. We're like, and it's literally like if I walked out of my house and if I walked to Starbucks, I'd be there in like a minute.
That's freaking close, bro.
Yeah, yeah, for real.
So yeah, so I was telling you, yeah, he was the one that I had seen you, but I didn't know your person. Like I knew the drummers of those bands, but I was like,
Yeah.
dang, bro, like I always followed you because I remember that one of the discos en vivo that was recorded in Monterrey. I'm not gonna say the band's name yet. Um, I remember I was playing that shit like over and over. I started touring when I was like 10 or 11 and I bought it in Miami. I remember that album, and I was fucking hearing that shit over and over, bro. And then when I found out it was you, I was like, "Holy shit, bro!" Like, it's bien chiquito el mundo.
Yeah.
So
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What album was this?
it was, I think, with Kumbia Kings, right? That you were there.
No, that's not me.
I thought we always thought it was you, bro.
Yeah, no, not on the en vivo. No, I have. Believe it or not, there's actually a live album that we did, and we filmed it in Corpus, but it never got
No
released.
salió.
But yeah, I got in the band 2 weeks after that was recorded.
Fuck, dude. I'm sorry, my bad. I'm getting that wrong right there. You
Mm.
see, yo pensé que todos
Yeah,
pensamos que eras tú, so I was like, oh.
yeah, no,
I always thought it was you. Like you can't really tell who it was, like on the face. Ya ves que pasan the camera, like over. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like kind of like no se mira clarito todo, ¿verdad? But the people that you could see always, pues a fuerzas, the singers and AB. Todo.
yeah.
Pero let's get into your beginnings. How was your childhood, bro? I know that. I mean, obviously, did you go to regular school or were you homeschooled or?
Well, I started like every kid starts. I went to school, started going to public school. Obviously, I didn't know that touring was going to eventually take over my life. Uh, I obviously was in elementary school and all that. They're in Seguin, Texas. That's where I'm from, born and raised. Um, and but my passion for music, for playing the drums, actually has been with me since I was born because of my father and my dad. My dad was a drummer, and I mean, it was in my blood. It's in my blood. God blessed me with the gift of rhythm, and you know, my dad knew right away that I was destined for this. Like he knew. My mom, she obviously wanted him to show me how to play because I was his first son, and you're going to teach your son how to play drums. And it's funny because he told her no, like that, because he knew that I had it in me. Like he already knew that that this is how I was born. With that gift. And it's funny because my dad had a mutual friend, a family friend. His name was Frutoso Valderas. They're from Seguin, and Frutoso played drums too. So my mom would tell my dad, "Well, if you're not going to teach Joey, I'm going to call Fruit to teach Joey." And my dad was like, "No, you're not calling nobody," because my dad, in his heart, bro, he knew that this is what I was going to do. You know, crazy.
Yeah, I think I mean, everybody, most of the people are born with a talent. I mean, it's really hard to get somebody into something that they don't have it de nacimiento, in their blood.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was the same way. I mean, I think my dad maybe helped me with a couple of rhythms. My dad's a musician too, and a drummer, and he has seen it in me. Like he was just like I would watch him play, and I was like, okay. So I would try to mimic it, in the air, like norteño,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. I had a little bit of trouble with the kick and hi hat at first, but after that, I was gone. Yeah, I had the basics. That's how I started too. I think like every person that plays an instrument usually has it from someone. My dad didn't have a
Yeah.
family that was musicians. He was actually staff with a group, but he liked drums.
Okay. Orale.
So he wasn't born basically with it. He didn't have nobody that played, so he learned
Well,
through.
see, my dad. I didn't mean to cut you off, but my dad, he had been playing, drums all his life, and my dad's name is Jose Jimenez. That's his, Jose Jimenez Senior. But he got the nickname Chiquillo when he was little because he would go play at like the age of 5 and 6 years old, and the people that would pick him up at my grandparents' house, they would always say, "Vamos a ir a levantar el chiquillo a tocar," and that became his nickname.
Yeah.
So my dad, he did amazing things in his career, playing drums, and when I was born, and from what I can remember from when I was little, I mean, I just automatically had this connection with this beautiful instrument. Like it was just for me, it was like my first love, so to speak. Like I mean, I never said that I wanted to be a drummer when I grow up. This is how I was born, carnal. Like this is it's in my DNA. You know what I mean? So right off the bat, it's like this was already my story kind of already had its path ready. And it's crazy, man, because my dad being my dad and my dad being a drummer, he never once taught me anything. He never gave me a lesson of anything. If there's anything that I could remember about my dad that when I was younger, is I remember I would sit at the table, right? And I'm a big rocker, and I would sit at the table, and I would always play like double bass on the floor with like this was the table, and the feet. I would always be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with my feet, I would always do that. And I remember one time my dad was like, "Why are you doing that with 2 feet?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he goes, "I could do that with 1 foot." And I was like, "What?" So I remember I remember going to see my dad play that weekend. And I was sitting down right here, like on the floor, like this, looking at his foot. And he would like get my attention to see. And he would do it, dude. And I thought that was like the craziest thing I had ever seen in my life, to see my dad do what I was doing with 2 feet, he was doing with one.
Yeah, I think that each person has their mañas. They have their, you learn how to manage a certain arrangement when you want to do something. I think I can't do what you do on the kick. To be honest, is to I tried to do double pedals, but because when I started hearing you, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try double pedals, but I don't know, no, I haven't got the hand, and I really didn't look into like a video or something, but
Yeah,
I was like, fuck, that dude is fucking crazy. Like, I was like,
yeah. But,
crazy.
but, but what's crazy about that, bro? And like, this is neta. Like, I never, like, I would just do what I just showed you right now. What I would do on the table. That's what I would do all the time, because I didn't have a drum set growing up. Like when I was younger, I was about, I don't know, 3, 4 years old, 5 years old. I didn't have drums, you know? So, but all my life, I would practice either on the sofa or buckets. I used to have buckets. And this is what I'm getting at. We used to have a cuartito in the back of our house. And the cuartito, the floor was made of wood. So if you stomped on it, it was real like low sounding. So what I would do is I would sit on a bucket, and then I would put like 4 buckets around me. And my dad had old cymbals that were broken from his drum set, and they were like, like ride cymbals. So what I would do is, because I didn't have stands, you know what I mean? So what I would do is I would take the cymbal and I would turn it upside down for it to balance from the bell. I would put it upside down on these crates that my dad had made for my mom. So when she would hang our laundry, she could put the basket on the crate. So I would have 2 crates with 2 cymbals upside down, and I would sit and play the buckets. And that was my drum set. And that's, to me, dude, that was like, if a guy owned a DW today, like that was like my DW back in the day. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like in heaven. So it's weird because I would do all these things, and I'm, like I said, I'm a big rocker. So growing up, even more so, I was watching MTV, all the rock bands, Motley Crue, Metallica, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Van Halen, just everybody. And a lot of those songs from the 80s and the 80s rock, they had double bass in it. You know what I mean? So I would try to copy it on my own, and I would just play outside and whatever. So I did that without an actual drum set. Well, fast forward to when I was about 13 years old, I was playing in a Tejano band called Excelencia. We'll get in between all of that here in
Yeah,
a
we'll
second.
go back and forth.
Yeah, we'll go back and forth. But when I was with Excelencia, we played a show in Lubbock, Texas. I'll never forget. We played a show in Lubbock, Texas, and that we were playing a concert. And my friend Adam, and I cannot remember Adam's last name to I can't remember it, and I'm sorry, Adam. Please forgive me. But he was the drummer for Shelly Lares, who was a Tejano singer. So he let me use his drum set that night. Well, his drums, and it was this badass red Ludwig. It was super awesome looking. Well, he had a double pedal, and I had never played on a double pedal. I just would play on the floor. And then when I was able to buy my own drum set when I was 8, I, all I had was a single pedal. So, anyways, I remember playing with Excelencia, and I think it was the first song. When we were ending the song, bah, I immediately, bro, my feet immediately went like like they knew what to do. That was the crazy part, because I had never practiced that. Like, as far as like with pedals and on the bass drum, and it's like I sat there
and you
and
know
it
what to
just
do.
came to me. You know what I mean? It just happened. Like it just came to me. And that freaks me out, man, because it's like it all comes from God. Like I was blessed with the gift. You know what I mean? And it seems like whenever I would try things or I would try to think of different things to do, of course, you practice them to get them right, but it almost seemed like I already kind of knew what I was doing. It's crazy.
Yeah, you were probably trying to overthink it, but like your body already knew where, like, what movements you had to do on the kick and everything. Because I respect that a lot, bro. Not a lot of drummers, at least in like the norteño scene. I only seen a couple. I think you and I can't remember his name. He's what Siggno right now. I can't remember his name, but you know,
Chato. His name's
Chato.
Chato.
Yeah, Chato.
Yeah.
And I seen him. I think when he used to play with his other band, and I seen him doing it. But I mean, each person has their style, respectito. But what you did, bro, it's like, oh, like todo lo que hiciste, in different bands and the way you manage your style, bro. Mad respect. I was, at the beginning before we even started, I kept going to the restroom back and forth. I told my wife I'm freaking nervous because because I respect you a lot, um, and I'm a big fan of your work. And
I appreciate that, man. That means you have no idea how much that means to me, bro. Because to me, like this beautiful instrument means everything to me. Like what I do, I do it with every inch of my heart. Every ounce of me goes into what I'm doing. And excuse me, when people acknowledge my craft, that means a lot to me.
I think it should be that way in anywhere, bro. I think sometimes when you're with certain people or certain bands, sometimes your talent goes unnoticed, and that's the main reason I think I did the show, or this talk. It's not an interview. It's just talking about everything, that about your life, basically, not just the big moments, when you started and the middle and the struggles, and I think that's very important for the people that don't know you, don't know other people that are in this beautiful industry of music.
Yeah,
Because sometimes they think everything's pretty, everything's color of red roses and como dicen color de rosa in Spanish. And
yeah,
I think it's very important to get out the story of every musicians. I know that they had interviewed you in a couple other places because I follow you, but sometimes I feel like there's parts that are missing, at least from what I hear, they do a quick 10 minutes or 5 minutes y vámonos. And
yeah.
you did this for, it could be a little bit longer, whatever time the person gives me to tell their story, because there's more behind just the éxito.
Yeah, man. It's been, you know what? It's been quite a journey, you know, and it's been so many blessings. Of course, you have your ups and downs, but it's been, no regrets, man. I've been very blessed with the career that I've been able to have and experience. And you know, when I started when I was younger, when I was doing the bucket thing, there was a cantina that was across the street from my house, and the men that ran this cantina, pues they heard me playing in my cuartito, and it's crazy because if you think about it, I'm playing on buckets para comenzar. You know what I mean? It's not a drum set; these
Yeah.
are buckets. But I must have been doing something that these guys were like, "Who's that?" So
Yeah.
they actually came over and they saw me playing on my buckets. And to them, they were freaking out. Number one, I'm playing on buckets. Number two, I'm a freaking huerquillo. I'm like 3, 4 years old, you know? So I remember them talking to my dad. They wanted me to come over. The cantina was called the Green Frog. And they wanted me to come over and like sit in with whatever band was playing at the time. So I did. And I guess the word got out, man. So then all of a sudden, I had bands coming over to my house and wanting to take me on the road. Like, because I mean, I would play. The thing is that my dad was still playing locally there in Seguin with Tejano band. He was in the Tejano band. They were called David y Tiempo. That was the name of the band, and they were pretty popular. They would play every weekend. They played like quinceañeras. They played weddings. I mean, if there was like the county fair, like they played all those things. So when my dad would play, well, she would call me up on stage and ask me if I wanted to, play a song or two. So I would get up and jam with him. Well, bands would come and ask me to go play with him, and then I would go like to San Antonio to play, San Antonio, Texas, which is like 35 minutes from Seguin, or I would play there locally, and they would pay me, bro. So now here I am at 5 years old. I mean, I'm five playing in these cantinas and making money. Like, I don't know, they pay me like, I don't know, like $50 or, and I would be there with my Coke and chips or whatever. And
That's a lot of money
go,
for a little 5-year-old.
yeah, man. So that's how that was back then. It was, and I didn't, dude, trust me, bro. All I wanted to do was play the drums. And that's basically how it's been ever since. Like I didn't get into a band or be in a band because I wanted to be some famous guy or whatever. I just wanted to play my drums and play my drums with other musicians that had the same passion that I did for music. And it was crazy. So here I am as a little kid, and I did that, bro, for about 4 years, man. Like almost just about every weekend, I would play with the conjunto from Seguin or whatever. They would come and pick me up, and I would go out there until there was a band, a Tejano band that was coming up in, let's see, we're talking 1990, bro. That's a long time
I
ago.
wasn't even born, bro.
No, dude, see,
Damn. I'm
I'm
from
dating
92,
myself,
bro.
bro.
I'm from 92, so
So I this band, one of my really good friends, his name is Carlito Miranda. And Carlito, he plays a part in my journey because I had seen he had his own band back in the day. They were called Carlito Miranda Jr. or Carlos Miranda Jr. and the Boys. That was the name of the Tejano band, right? And I thought these guys were like rock stars, bro. I was young. I was 9 years old. And they looked like rock stars, long hair, and they all wore the same matching outfits and stuff. And I remember like seeing them perform, and I was thinking, like, I want to be in that band. Like, that's the band I want to be in. Well, it's funny because Carlos's dad, se llama Carlos Miranda Sr., and Carlos's dad comes from Monclova, Mexico. Well, his dad came to the U.S. And he started singing and became this famous Tejano singer. Well, my father played drums with Carlos Miranda, the dad, Carlos's dad. So I obviously I found that out, after the fact. But here I am, wishing and praying that I would be able to have the opportunity to play with his band. And sure enough, one day I went to go see my dad play. They're in Seguin at this place called the Fiesta Ballroom, which is like the popular salon there.
you
Excuse
played
me.
there and you're freaking badass local, man.
Well, check it out. Well, I went. My dad was playing that day, so I went to go see my dad play. Obviously, we were always there, and so my dad calls me up to play some songs. So I play some songs, and they were actually opening up for David Ligarza y los Musicales, which is a legend Tejano artist from Poteet, Texas. And shout out to David and everybody. Este, So Carlos Miranda Jr. happened to be at this show. And dude, I was 9 years old, bro. A 9-year-old little Huiquillo, you know? So I sat in with my dad, played some songs. I get off stage and I see Carlos there with his girlfriend at the time.
Were you shitting it? Were you like, oh fuck, I didn't see
Well,
you?
I saw him. I'd see him, and he was like, "What's up, bro?" And it's so weird, man, because I was so freaking excited that he was there. And if he sees this podcast, he's gonna love the fact that I'm saying this shit about him. So I see him, and we start talking. Well, anyways, he starts telling me that he's looking for a drummer, and I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Man." So he asked me if I could be his drummer, if I wanted to be his drummer. But of course, 9 years old, I gotta have I gotta ask my parents' permission, you know. So I remember running over to my mom and dad at the table, like, "Oh my god, mom, blah, blah, blah. You know, Carlos wants me to join his band," and I think my parents didn't even pay attention to me. Like they're like, whatever, you know.
I think you were
But
overly excited at the time. It's like,
yeah, I was probably like they probably thought I was full of shit. Well, like I think the next day or two, he reached out to me and asked me to come to a rehearsal. So my dad actually took me to a rehearsal of theirs, and one thing led to another. I got to jam with them, and then I became the drummer of his band. And it was so cool because back in those days, bro, like in the early 90s, Tejano music was booming. Or not that it was because it was mid 90s where it got like super popular. But like right in the early 90s is when it started getting agarrando vuelo. You know what I'm saying? Like it was already getting ready to just explode into this mainstream thing. Well, because we were a young band and we just played cover songs. We weren't an original band. We would play everywhere in Texas, bro. Like believe it or not, we were a cover band that played all the popular Tejano songs that were on the radio. And because Tejano music was popular at the time, we could play Friday and Saturday, or sometimes Friday, Saturday, and Sunday every week. That's what we were doing. Road warriors. Like we would go, all over the state of Texas. Well, it just so happened that A.B. Quintanilla from Selena and Los Dinos at the time was when Selena would go play, let's say, for example, they would go play in Dallas, right? And at that venue or the club or whatever, it had a picture of our band that either we were coming to that place or we had already played there. Well, they started, as Selena and them were traveling, was they were seeing our flyer
like who
at a
is?
lot of places. Like, who are these guys? Because, like I said, we weren't on the radio. We weren't playing original music. We're playing covers. We're playing everywhere. But they saw our flyer everywhere. And on the flyer, it had a contact number, which was Berta Miranda, which is Carlos's mom. She was like our manager. So one day, I guess AB wrote the number down and he called Berta and basically was like, wanting to know who this band was and what was the story behind it and whatever. So I remember, bro, I was in school and I get out of school and Bertha comes to pick me up after school and says, "Hey, we have an audition with A.B. Quintanilla." And I was like, "Who's that?" I had no idea who he was. I didn't even really know who Selena was at the time. And so we went to this salon there in Seguin that Carlos's parents used to own, and we used to rehearse there. And so AB and his wife at the time, they come to the rehearsal, and he's sitting there at the table and whatever. And here's the crazy part, bro. We get there, we start setting up our equipment. So I start setting up my drums and everything. And yeah, when I'm already gonna be done, I'm like, oh my God, where are my cymbals? I couldn't find my cymbals. And I had left them at my house, but I had my hi-hats. I had the hi hats. I didn't have no crashes, no ride, no nothing, just the fucking hi hats. That's all I had. And I was like, oh my god, like I couldn't just leave and go to my house to get the cymbals because we were doing this audition. So, anyways, long story short, we did the audition. He loved it, saw potential in the band, and basically took us under their wing. And we went on tour with Selena Los Dinos as her opening act for like 2 years, everywhere she went. And I was 11. Crazy.
Dude, that's crazy, bro. You know, like one thing took you to the other. I'm gonna go back a little. When you first started playing in the cantinas and winning money and all that stuff, what was your mom thinking? What would your mom say? Like, what was her reaction when you started doing that?
Well, my mom supported me 100%. It's weird because the stories that she would tell me when I was little, or the stories she would tell me like as I was growing up about when I was little, that she was the one that really supported me, really pushed me, or just was supportive. And my dad, however, my dad supported me, but he just felt that I needed to have something else other than music because music, it's not always going to be, he went through it. You know what I'm saying? But my mom, I got to give it to her because through everything, she was proud of me, man. She supported me 100%. And even till this day that we speak, it's funny because my father, as I got older, or more so like when I was a teenager, my dad, he would never give me credit. Like people, if he went to go see me perform, because I was young, I was a young dude, and at the time in Tejano music, I was the youngest drummer in the industry. I was the youngest guy out there touring, and for some reason, my dad just never really gave me credit. And I never understood why. Like people would come up to me and, oh my God, Joe, you're awesome, and you're this and you're that. And my dad was just like, it didn't impress him, And I'm not saying that I needed to seek validation from my father, but nevertheless, it's my dad. He plays drums. He's like my number one drum influence. Like if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't even be doing this. You know what I mean? But he was just, I don't know, man. He it's so weird because up in when I joined AB's band years later, that's when he finally started giving me credit and telling me that he was proud of me, and probably because I was always on TV and people would tell him, "Hey man, we saw Joey on TV, it was badass," and shit like that. But yeah, man, my mother, honest to God, bro, she has always supported me in my dream.
Yeah, I think the moms are always like my mom are the ones that support you. At on my side, it was like mostly my dad. Um, like when I got my big opportunity, I was already on tour, but I was gonna go back to school. I was in homeschool since I was 10, and I was going back to, I was gonna go back to regular school. So she's like, you know what, I'm gonna put you back in school. You're done. This was like I was 12 already, and I toured from 10 to 12, and then she's like, I'm gonna put you back. I mean, you're not touring anymore, so you don't need to be at home. And and then I swear, dude, like 3 days before I went to school, one of my homies calls me. He tells me, hey, he knew I was starting to know how to play piano, and he had a lot of faith in me. And he's like, you know what? We want you to come to Mexico. This is a band. This is a Duranguense band um, that used to be with K-paz. You probably don't know him because it's a complete, different type of
Well,
style.
I know. I've heard of Capaz, and a lot of my really good friends are from Montes de Durango. I knew
Danny,
Chito from Los Alacranes. Yeah, Danny and Junior, the Terrazas. Saludos a los Terrazas, camaradas. Um, Chito from
from Alacranes.
Alacranes. Yeah, man.
Yeah, Carmelo actually was one of the drummers of Capaz. So
Órale.
so he was one of that recorded a lot of hits in there. But you know, I got the opportunity when they split up from Capaz and they did their own thing, and that's when I started touring. And my mom didn't want to support me anymore. She's like, you know what, you need to go to school, regular school. You need to be a regular kid. And I was like, you know what, if you put me in school, I was a rebel. I was being rebel at that point. I was like, you know what, if you put me, I'm just gonna fail. I'm not gonna care about school because you know this is what I want to do. I want to tour. I want to, you know, this is my opportunity. It was just a big opportunity coming to me, you know. And
Yeah.
and
It's a trip, man, because believe it or not, when I was playing, when I was a teenager, you know, when I joined, especially when I joined Excelencia, which was the Tejano band from Houston, Texas. When I joined Excelencia,
how did
first of all,
how did that
I,
come? How did that
well,
come to you?
here's the funny thing about Excelencia. Excelencia is a band. When I was touring with Carlos when we were opening up for Selena, right back in those days. Well, I used to go eat at this Mexican restaurant there in Seguin called Huelas, and Huelas had this poster of this band that I thought they looked like a rock band. Like they didn't look like a Tejano band, and their name started with an X, but I could not pronounce what that name was. You know, I just knew every time we would go eat there, like every Sunday, because they had good menudo, and we would go there, and I would just look at this picture and be like, "This." I thought they were a fucking rock band, you know, and it just so happened that Seguin was having the 16 celebration, and I saw a picture in the newspaper of that band that they were going to come perform in Seguin. And I was like, oh man, I begged my mother and father to take me because I wanted to see. Again, I thought they were a rock band. I
Like,
didn't know
what is
that
this
they
rock
played
band?
Tejano music. You know what I mean? I had no idea. So I remember the day of the show, my mom and dad, we were going to, it was in downtown Seguin. So we were headed that way. And then I heard the lady, her name was Rosie Ornelas. She was a real famous DJ back in the day. And she was already about to announce them. And we were just getting there. And I told my mom and dad, like, I told my dad, like, hurry and park. I want to get off already. And my mom goes, well, go ahead. Where are you going to go? I said, I'm going to go to the stage. I'm just going to let me get off. I'm going to run to the stage. I'll be at the stage. I promise you. So I said, okay. So they let me get off the van because we had a big old van. I got off the van and I ran to the stage, bro. And I just was there. And she was like, Damas y caballeros, desde Houston, Texas, excelencia. And they started jamming. And I was looking at them like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like they sounded so amazing. I instantly became a fan. I was already a fan, and I had never heard any of their music just by the way they looked. You know what I mean? And then so I watched them perform live. I became a fan, and a few years after that, one of their band members actually became my neighbor. Which, as crazy as that sounds, he was living literally like it was my house, the street, his house. Like he was my neighbor across the street. And I knew of him because before I was playing in Carlos's band, Carlos Miranda Jr. and the Boys, right? Before I was in that band, he was playing keyboards in that band. So, you know, it's a small world how I'm connected to everybody. But his name is Speedy. Shout out to Fidi Alvarez. And he was dating a girl from Seguin, and they lived together, and they lived right across the street from my house. And he knew obviously that I played drums and I was playing with Carlos at the time. And I would every morning before I would go to school, I would play, just I would play my drums, and then after school, of course, and before I went to bed. Well, it just so happened that one morning, and this is him telling me the story. And one morning, I was getting ready for school, and I got behind my drums, and I remember the new Excelencia CD just came out. So I had it at my house. So I would listen to it, and then I would play the songs or whatever. Well, there's this one song, it's called Quiéreme, and it has this intro on the drums. Well, I played it at my house, and obviously he could hear me because he was just literally across the street. So he's telling me that it's funny story because he tells me that he was dreaming at the time, he was asleep, dreaming that he was about to go on stage and he hears and then he goes to play the keyboard. But then he wakes up in the middle. I mean, he wakes up in the morning and he tells his girlfriend, like, listen. And then he starts air drumming what I'm doing across the street in my room. And he's telling her, who that's Joey? And she's like, yeah. And his girlfriend's like, yeah, that's Joey. So when I came home from school that night or that day, he tells me this story. And he's like, man, and I tell him, like, bro, Excelencia is like one of my favorite bands. It's La Mafia and Excelencia. So we became really, really good friends. So one time, Excelencia ended up playing in Seguin again at this club, and he invited me to the show. So I went to go see them, and I was about, I don't know, like 12 years old. And he called me up there. They called me up there to play a song. So I played a song, and I was like, because I mean, Excelencia was one of my favorite bands, you know? So I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. You know, I'm playing with him. And so that led to about maybe, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months after that, where they called me and asked me if I wanted to join the band. And the crazy part about it is that at the time, I was still playing with Carlos. And I just felt like I didn't want to leave Carlos. I didn't want to quit the band to join even though Excelencia was like everything to me at the time. I just felt like I couldn't quit the band. You know what I mean? So I literally I actually told them no, like, no, like, no, I'm gonna stay here. And I remember them like, what? Like, I thought this is what you wanted to do, or we were your favorite band, or are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. And I think I immediately knew that that was the wrong decision that I was making, but I stuck with it. And was I didn't join the band. They ended up finding somebody else, and I ended up staying with Carlos, right? And I would tell myself all the time, son, I should have went. I should have just joined the band. Well, I didn't think. Well, I thought that my window was, yeah, that's my
Oh,
opportunity was closed. It was over. But about 2 months later, they called me again because something wasn't working with that drummer that they got, and they called me again. And this time, I actually spoke to the lead guy, the singer. He called me and told me, and here's the thing, bro, is that I of course I told him yes, I'll join your band. But he called me like on Monday or Tuesday. I think it was on Monday that they wanted me to go play that Friday and Saturday. So it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I lied to my mom and dad. I never told them that I was joining Excelencia. I didn't tell them I was joining the band because I had a feeling that they wouldn't like that shit because
they were like,
Excelencia, it was just, I just felt like they weren't going to allow it. You know what I mean? For me to be going on the road, and no, they weren't going to allow that. And so I tell them, I tell David Dianda, the leader of Excelencia, I said, yeah, man, I'm down or whatever. So it just so happened that Excelencia's road crew, there were three guys, and they were cousins. Well, their grandmother, she lived in Seguin, like small world, dude. This is a small world. So whenever the road crew would pass through Seguin, was they would go in the equipment truck and go visit her, and then they would end up going back to Houston because Excelencia was based out of Houston, Texas. So when I agreed to join the band, they go, okay, well, we're gonna have our road crew come pick up your drum set. And I was like, oh no, my mom and dad are here.
Don't
They're
do
gonna
that.
see. They're gonna pull up in a big ass truck taking. I said no. So I waited until I remember. I think it was the next day. We actually went out to dinner. My mom and my dad, myself and my little brother went to eat dinner. And I had told Beatty, which was my neighbor, who was the keyboard player in the band. I said, "Hey, bro, I'm gonna go eat with my parents. Tell them to come, and I'll leave my door open, and just go in my house, get my drums, and we'll be good." He was like, "For real?" I said, "Yeah." But I think I don't remember how I told him because I didn't let him or anybody know that my parents had no idea. So he just was going to get my drum kit and como si nada, right? Like thinking everything was fine. So there I go, bro. And because I was such a big Excelencia fan, the day of my first gig, I'll never forget, was in Harlingen, Texas. And I was such a fan of Excelencia, bro, that I didn't even have to rehearse with the band. Like I knew all their music. And I remember that night when it was time to play and smelling the freaking smoke machine in the club that we were playing at. I mean, this was like this. I feel like this happened yesterday because I remember how it was exactly that moment. And dude, the funny thing is that I told my mom and dad like that Thursday. I had a buddy of mine by the name of Billy Alegria that I went to school with, and I told my parents, "Mom, tomorrow after school, I'm gonna go stay at Billy's house for the weekend. I'll come back on Sunday. Is that okay?" And I mean, I was a good kid. I never got in trouble or nothing. So they were like, "Okay, that's fine." So my parents thought that I was going to stay with my friends, but I had Feedy, the keyboard player, and one of the other guys picked me up after school. Y arrancamos pa'l valle to Harlingen. And dude, I left for it was like for what 2 days. I came back on Sunday, and like nothing. My mom and dad didn't know nothing. Like
Inter-
they didn't know shit because I had clothes with me in my backpack because I told them I was gonna spend the night at Billy's house. So they had no they just thought that's where I was going. And so that happened for about a month until finally one day, Feedy, the keyboard player that lived across the street, saw my mom watering the grass. And he comes across and hey, Dottie, how are you? My mom's name is Dottie. And hey, Dottie, how's it going? And it's going good. And he's like, hey, so how do you and Chiquillo like that Joey's playing with us? And my mom's like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, that how do y'all think? Like, what do y'all think? He's playing with Excelencia. He's playing with Excelencia. What are you talking about? And dude, I got home from school that day and I'll never forget my mom and dad were on the couch and they tell me, hey, where are your drums? And I was like,